Okay, so this is where we're going next. We're going to do the background before we do this area, because I think the background is a good chance to kind of loosen up as you're painting before you do these two areas. So I've got phthalo green here, and I have a combination that I happen to like, and it seems to have something special about it, but I suspect that you could mix a lot of other things and get a similar effect. But when I see it, it just, there seems to be something different. So I am taking my phthalo green, blue shade, and I am adding a lot of ultramarine. Okay, so let's take a scrap. Let's see how that looks on the scrap. Oh, that's a little bit bluer than I wanted. So let's go back and put a little more phthalo green in. Oh, that's a chunk. It's not like I'm mixing up a pharmacy prescription here. I can mess up a little bit. That looks too green, but I don't believe it. I believe I didn't wash my brush out properly. Let's try again. Oh, that's pretty near it. Yeah. Now, I might tone it down a little bit. I could. Oh, I've got something running in over here contaminating my Gwen Coral, which I don't want to have that happen. But I could put just a touch of rose into it, just a touch. And that's just going to make it go a little bit duller. And maybe a tiny bit darker. I don't want much. I don't know if that was enough to do anything. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Let's just mix it up good. I don't want to rinse that brush out again. I'm wasting too much paint. See, it's just a tiniest bit grayer. That's exactly what I wanted. Yours doesn't have to be like mine. Okay, so what I've got here now is I've got really dirty water, and I really do need some clean water to work with. So I gotta go change out the water. Okay, so now let's paint on the background. And let's talk about this business of blending a little bit more. And there are a lot of ways to do this, but here's the thing. I want some really pretty solid bits of dark in some places, and then I'm doing all these soft areas. And this could have more stuff superimposed on it and be turned into something more. I probably won't make any decisions on that until this is dry. Okay. Let's do that. So, paper towel in hand. So I've got, I guess this is a number 10 round. You can use a flat, you can use a round, you could use a 12 round if you wanted. Okay, so I'm loading the brush. Let's see if this shows. I'm going to load the brush up here. And I've picked a place that I want to be really dark. So I'm going to come in here on dry paper. And I'm going to be careful right here around this part of the flower. And I'll put in some bits of color like that even, okay? Because I want this to be uneven. Okay, I'm washing out my brush, and remember we talked about that. You're washing out that brush thoroughly. So I'm pressing down to the ferrule, down under the water. Whether it's a round or flat, I still do that. And then I'm adding water onto these edges. I could leave twinkles in here, or I could add water into those places. So you can see I've gotten some soft areas, some little runny things going on. And I'm washing the brush out again. And I'm just going to pull carefully. I need to watch those edges. Pull some color, some water out here. Yeah, I think I'll get rid of some of the twinkles there. So as I'm pulling it out, this is still as light as it looks. It's still going to have an effect. So then I might come back in, add a little into that. And did I want a dark spot there? I don't want to overdo. I don't want this to feel like it's got a dark outline around it. That's just death to a painting to do that. This poor brush has been mistreated. It doesn't have a very good point. If you got a brush with a good point on it, treasure that, because brushes are expensive, and that point is really very useful to have. Okay, wash that brush out. Remember, press down to the ferrule sideways. Don't damage the tip of your brush. See, I only want a little more water than that. On this, I can afford to work really, really wet. Let's just drop some water right in here. Okay. It's making some nice areas. And I'll just keep on working it over. See, I've still got color here. Would I like to put just touch the tip of the brush in here? Make a little spot there so that I can pull some more color going this way. Maybe I want a little more color than that. Ooh, okay. Now that's got an interesting edge on it there. I don't want to lose that. So I've got to be careful because this brush does not have a good point. If I was using a flat here, I'd actually have a good point on that corner. I almost never lose a good edge on a flat brush, no matter how they get treated. Now this seems to be greener than that. So I think what I need to do, well, that's interesting because that's not altogether a bad thing. By the way, you see where there's an edge pointing up this way right off the tip of that petal? I want to be sure that I don't create some kind of line right there because those things happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir my paint up a little better. And, well, let's go here. And I'm going to turn this. Yeah, stirring it up brought the blue back in. So, you know, I wouldn't mind having a little more blue in this mixture. I think I'm going to pick up a little more ultramarine and add to my mix. And I've been using French ultramarine, and I do like that it granulates a whole lot. That could be fun. It could be fun to granulate. Just depends on who you are, huh? Well, I don't see any more blue in that. Darn it. Well, I just added some out of the stuff. Okay. Let's see here. Well, we don't want that kind of mess. Keep soft edges. And as I add generous amounts of water back into this, it floods different ways and makes patterns and stuff, and that's all really nice. It adds interest to the background without really having too much, calling too much attention to itself. It just does a little bit of attention to itself. So if you're like me and you've got this brush with this bad point, you could pick up a little brush with a better point to do the small areas. And if you've got an expensive large round, like I know some friends of mine do, you want to really take care of that. So I think that's more color in there than I want. I think I'll just add a little more water into it. Well, I was going to run it off the edge, but there we go. I don't need to run it off the edge. I would still like that to be lighter than that. Let's just blot a little bit, but you can get some creepy things going on there. And by creepy, I mean the paint, the edges of the paint can creep and look kind of chewed up. So I really don't want that, because it's not necessarily a bad thing to have that happen. You might want it to happen someplace, but I don't particularly want it to happen when it's not happening anywhere else in here. I think I'd still like that to be lighter, like in my original. Just add a little more water to it. Maybe I'll move that around a little bit more. Okay. So here we go again. Whoa, that's strong. I probably don't want that strong there. I think I'd just like to have it a little lighter up here. Oh, I splattered. So this is like really soupy. I'm working really soupy here. See, I'm working with two kinds of paint. I'm working with one color that granulates a lot, and I'm working with another color that is very ink-like and flows and doesn't granulate at all. I do have a trick for making some color granulate more than is natural to it. That's just too, I think that's too dark, too the same all over. If I'm going to put fresh water in there to hold my place, it needs to be clean fresh water, of course. So I've got more variety in color here, especially there where I added some in. Well, that'll be interesting to see how I feel about that later. Let's just keep moving this around, keep it kind of light. I don't think this one's going to be quite as successful as the last one. Part of that's because I can't make up my mind what successful means. I'd like to have a little bit of something different happening. Just want a little bit of variety, but not too much. And what I didn't do with my other one was that one side of this, it could line up with the other, doesn't have to. Okay, well this has got a little more variety going on in it, and it's interesting. I just think I'd rather have that lighter up here. Don't scrub with your round brush. I'm not scrubbing, I'm kind of moving side to side, but even that's a little much. And I want a clean paper towel here. That'll do. Okay, there is step 2. Oops, I left a spot out. I'm moving to a smaller brush, and I'm going to put color right in here. Some people mentioned to me that they had an easier time keeping their place with this once this little bit of background was colored in, that there was less confusion for them as they worked on the petals. So I didn't want to leave this out on the video. Here I'm just adding water on this side because I decided I didn't want it the same value all the way across. There is a little place on this. There is a place right up under the edge of this flower that goes green, that fades into that. I may or may not bother with that, but having it light there will make it easier to do if I decide to. Okay. That's where we are right now. Okay, here's our final part for today's lesson. We're going to go to this. So you see a multicolored shadow. That's what it is. When you look at this, these two areas are in shadow quite a bit more than this. There may be some dark places in this, but most of it is really made with just reds. We may do a little bit of shadow work. But right here, you have the outer petals, which are highlighted. And then you have the inside cup of the flower, which is away from the light. So what I want you to look at is that this area right here, for instance, okay, this is a white part of the flower, right? So I've got my little dealie here. Well, you can see that's quite a bit darker than white. In fact, that's pretty dull, actually. But it is grayer than the red areas. Now, look right up here. This is still part of the white. See right here? Okay. Look at that. See, that looks reddish-brown. But when you contrast it with the areas on either side, which are darker and redder, it reads as still part of the white. Also because it extends from this area, and so your brain is making that into one thing there. Okay. So, let's get on with it. So we're going to go from here to here. Let's see if maybe I can set this real close together there. Okay. What I have here, I've got the same cad yellow light, pale, whatever you call it. And I've got the Queen Coral. Fairly thin, not super thin, but you can see that's not a creamy pink. That's pretty thin. And then over here, I've got phthalo green again. Boy, it's still, I think I'm gonna thin that down a little bit more water. Like this. Okay. Set those aside. paper towel handy, and I guess I'll put this on this side. Mostly clean water. You get that, mostly. Okay. So let's wet down the areas that we're going to put color into. Remember, this is just an overall shadow color. This is not going to be as dark as so when we add the reds. This isn't even adding the reds, but I am going over the areas that have green and yellow. And this comes up in here around this thing. I don't necessarily, when I do things like this, put the water quite all the way to the edge, because when I add color, I'll push it out to the edge a little bit, because then I can see exactly what I'm doing when the color's in there. Okay, so that's enough water, more than enough. Okay. So I'm in favor of starting out with the yellow. See, we're basically making a red, yellow, and, well, blue-green. So I'm going to put a little more yellow in here. And I don't have to let it dominate in one area or another, but I don't want it to mix all the way together. I want some, this might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I want the color to move around in here, but with very soft edges. So I put some yellow in here. Now I'll add a little red. I might not put the red quite into the green, maybe a little bit. Let's just get a little in here. Some of you will get lighter than me, and some of you will be darker than me, and it'll work. I'm not going to get this as dark as the photo. And one of the reasons is that, you know, those photos can go a little dull if you make your watercolor as dark as, well, I don't know how to explain it, but it can. Particularly when you're mixing colors together. So I want a little bit of this into here because it's got to gray it. So I got something like this. Now let's just move it around. But I'm going to move it around gently. I'm not overworking it or working it too much. And first of all, it would be hard to overwork. Happens when the paint is really too dry, in my opinion. You're not nearly so likely to overwork it if it's still floating around. And remember, this is a shadow area. It's going to be a little bit grayed, but here we're going to have beautiful nuanced neutrals, or they won't be quite all that neutral. Here, see, I'm pulling some of this green into the red area. And although you see me moving my brush a lot, it's just barely touching this paint and pushing it around a little bit. I think we could use a little more red in over the green. It will still look green because it's compared to the other areas. There's an area here that's kind of bright, and I might add some water, pull up. I've been doing a lot of this technique lately, and add a little touch of a little extra yellow in there, just a tiny bit of yellow. If you add thick yellow doesn't really brighten things. In fact, it tends to go dull looking. But thin, okay, that's nice. That's the best I've done on this, and this is my third one. Maybe I'll try to get this area a little darker. And maybe I would work to get this area right up in here a little darker. See, I can still do this. This is still generously wet. Okay. Less is more. This is good. So now I'm going to do the same thing up here to this one. Okay. So we're going to pre-wet it. Oh. And like I said, don't worry about getting all the way to the edges. Mostly pay attention to which areas should be darker and which ones shouldn't. So this is like really shiny wet. You know, it's got a lot of water on it. Don't put that water on there thin. Don't put a thin layer of water on there. Put a juicy, if I tilted this, it would run. That's how wet it is. Remember, part of what we're doing is we're making grayed down color, but I didn't go all the way gray. And you know, also, you're doing what's pretty to you. Just remember to keep it thin. But you can design this flower. So let's see. Let's go in here with some red. There's really kind of a light spot right up there at the tip. And I didn't get the water quite all the way up there accidentally. Well, I wasn't pushing it to the edges yet anyway. But I think I'm going to just take advantage of that. That might be a little too much color. What do you think? Okay, let's squeeze it out. Pull a little of it up. And drop a little yellow and more water back in here. Okay, that feels better. I just got a little bit strong there. But I need to gray this a little bit. See, this isn't grayed yet. So now comes a little bit of phthalo green. Oh yeah, this can use more up in this way too. But see, what it's also doing is it's graying things down. So in some places, see, that's an out and out gray right there. And again, this is still soupy wet. I can play with it and manipulate it because it's wet. There are so many people that have been working with this even for a long time, but it scares them to get wet enough. So instead they try to work drier, and they have to work trying to mix the paint and brush on it, and they kill the color. It goes dead and lifeless looking. Oh, look. Well, that's it. I'm done. I could pull up a lighter area in the middle if I wanted to. I don't really think I want to, but just as an example, and because I have more time. So the thing is, don't do a bunch of stuff just because you don't know what else to do. It's sort of like, I don't know what else to do, so I'll just keep working on this. Like what I'm doing right now. Okay. Oh, this is a little spot right in under there that's dark. I'll just put a little red there. Okay. I'm done. That's it for, oh, no, I'm not. Duh. This little thingy down here. See that? I'm not going to shade it near as much, but I'm going to shade it a little bit. Again, I'm putting color in here, but I'm not necessarily bringing it all the way to the edges yet. And here I'm going to use a little less green. And in fact, I'm not going to go quite as dark. Okay, just a touch of the green. There's a little green here on these tips. And then a little bit in under here to make shade. Okay, now I'm washing the brush out. And I'm just moving it around. See, I can pull it out to the edges now because I can see what I've got here. And I'm going to keep that little extra bit of green right there at the tip. That's kind of nice. Okay, this is shaping up. So, that's all of part one. Oh, I guess I should hold it up. There. Trying to hold it still. Hi, everybody. So, this is the beginning of our Christmas flower project. And this is the photo that you've got to work from. I'm going to mention that on my drawing, there's a couple of mistakes. There's more of these stamen things up here than I have in the original drawing. I already put them in here. You can put them in or leave them out, and I don't think it much matters. But right here, this petal continues right down here. It's very lost, but you really don't want to lose that. It looks wrong. So I'm going to put it in right here. Just a little mark like that. It's just a fold in this petal. Okay. Now, this time, I actually am running ahead of the video with my classes. And so I have an example of what I hope for us to accomplish in the first lesson. Okay. This is how far I want to get today. Alrighty. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out by putting the yellows and greens in the centers. I have got out here on my palette quinacridone coral, which we're not using quite yet. I've got cadmium yellow light, which you could substitute with something else, but I would have it be really cool yellow, not orangey. And I've got some phthalo green here, phthalo green blue shade. Okay, so paper towel in hand. Let's see. There's a lot of ways to go at this, but let's just do it the safest way ever. So let's put some water out here. And all I'm doing is I'm fixing it so that it'll be easier to blend the yellow in. Not that it's hard to blend the yellow, because quite frankly, yellow doesn't carry that much, it doesn't have enough value to it to make your mistakes show up. So over here, oh, I forgot to mention. Okay, so I obviously masked out some areas. Some of the little highlights that I thought I might forget about, plus the stamens here and here, but I didn't mask these because of value. They're kind of lost. They're not as important in here. So we're going to start out with them kind of blended in and then paint around them later. Okay, so I did not put water right down here in the center, in the part that'll be the darkest part of the flower. I only put like this halo of water out around here. And I don't mind if that soaks in a little bit. In fact, I might pull some up. I'm still using a round brush here. I'm on a round brush kick, thanks to Shirley Nichols. So I squeezed out my brush. Let's pick up the yellow. I wonder if I can do that, if that'll show. Okay. So just going to put the yellow in, kind of like I see it in the picture. Again, I wouldn't get just too overly concerned with it looking just like this flower. We want something just really pretty, and this is a really pretty flower. The red photograph of the last flower we did the photograph was not that attractive, and reds are hard to do, but I've seen a lot of good, picked up the wrong color. I've seen a lot of good results on this. Okay. Phthalo green, blue shade. And see, it's really going to stick right here in this part that doesn't have any yellow, that's not wet. And then I'm just going to come up this way. And it's going to grow into here. You know, I've got a lot more yellow there than is in the picture. I kind of like the yellow there, though. If you want less yellow, you could use a whole lot less yellow. You could probably, well, I wouldn't use no yellow, but... So I'm wiping my brush off, and I'm just, teasing that around a little bit. This has some areas that are lighter. You could make some of those if you wanted to. I didn't before, but, I could play with this. And pull up some lighter areas. It's not going so well. I'll do a couple more spots here. I just keep pulling up and filling in with a little water. Let's see, let's just do maybe one other area. I guess that's okay. Maybe I would like to get rid of a little of that yellow. Just add some water in, squeeze my brush out, and pull up. There. Yeah, maybe I'll get rid of some of this yellow. I get to change my mind because I'm a female, right? Where'd they get that word female? Okay, so there, we've got that. Maybe I'll put a little touch of yellow in there. Yeah, I like that, I think. The thing is to kind of enjoy this and play with it. So this one has already lost its sheen. And I'll just leave it like that. I'll put real thin yellow in again. Oh, well, let's see what this looks like. Okay, this is pretty strong green in here. And there's a place right here that's extra bright, right there where I'm putting this yellow. There we go, like that. Remember, this phthalo green is strong stuff. I'm just using the tip of this number 10 brush. And I want to get the phthalo green till it runs into the yellows. I don't want it to make an edge of any kind. Okay, let's squeeze this out. Just play with it a little bit. We're going to put a wash over this whole area later. Well, that one went real easily. And then this one. Oops. This one right here. Same thing, you just need a little yellow in here. And these things are whitish. They look kind of like candy cane colors. I guess this plant has a male and female blossoms or something. Or do they all have that? I don't know. Anyway, because these are a lot different than those. I'll just do that. Because this whole area is going to be pretty dark later. I'll just turn it where it's convenient to handle. Let's turn that too, okay. Yeah, I don't need that green all the way out here. Guess it doesn't hurt anything. Now I want to avoid a bunch of hard edges. I want this to stand out because it's dark and colorful, not because of the specific shapes that the green makes. I could pull a little bit up off of these stamens if I wanted to. I could have painted around them or done, who knows. Here. Okay, this makes me happy enough. All right, so that was step one. Kind of pretty, isn't it? Just like that. I really love that phthalo green blue shade with the yellow. And I like the contrast where part of this is really just phthalo green blue shade. I like that.